Hi, this is Michele Downey, registered nurse, licensed marriage and family therapist, master addictions therapist, and welcome to my presentation on communication, which is my guide to understanding and using what I call the GATE. It's a method that I developed. So why is the GATE method for communication so important to learn and use? Because it teaches every aspect of feeling, thinking, and behavior, which includes assertive skills and negotiation skills, which are generally not taught in schools. Feelings, by the way, are our only barometer for emotional self-protection. Without understanding how thoughts produce feelings, we can't learn how to change our thoughts and thus our feelings. Sometimes our thoughts are distorted and we don't see it, and we need to be helped with our perception. So who needs this? Anyone who wants to learn skills to communicate with their loved ones, professional situations with employees or employers, professional healers with their patients or clients. Anyone at any age can learn this. This younger someone learns this, the more naturally part of their brain growth, the younger they are, the more capable they are to be able to communicate in a functional family system. Now, anyone past 24 years old, now that the brain has stopped its growth, can learn this. It's a little harder, but Dr. Martin Seligman did a lot of experiments with children, dogs, and cats. And these experiments show that we can learn and unlearn things. They did experiments with at-risk children for depression and taught them these skills. And over a period of time, they pulled one control group, just let them go, and another control group of kids they pulled out of school and taught them these skills. And by the time their time frame was up, which I believe was included a couple of years, the children who were at risk in the control group went on to have symptoms of clinical depression, probably need medication. Whereas the group that he worked with, they actually did not end up having to take medication, and they learned to put their depression, their clinical depression, in remission, and their projected future was interrupted. And we know by research this can happen. We can change the brain and we can change the future. So feelings aren't good or bad, right or wrong, like colors of a rainbow. We may prefer one over another, but they all contain messages. Feelings are the only way we connect. We don't connect through thoughts or words. Feelings are not thoughts. Most people mix it up. Feelings are gifts. For example, anger would give you energy, lonely, the gift of reaching out, fear, wisdom, shame, humility, pain, healing, guilt, values. Feelings aren't facts. They're just indicators and messengers, and they bring us lots of information. So here's a quick breakdown of the GATE, and then I'll continue. First we do the facts, then we do our feelings, and then we connect our feelings with our thoughts. Then we may ask what we prefer or need, and we also say what the consequences might be. So those are the first parts of the GATE. We never give advice, and we don't share first. So when we give feedback, we say, I heard, I saw, I felt, and if you're interested in my feedback, you ask, and if you're interested in my experience, you ask. We don't assume people want to know our experience or our feedback. Sometimes listening is all they need. So GATE assertiveness is when this happened. I felt or felt this. because my thought is, and I could be wrong, that keeps us humble because perhaps our thinking is distorted. And I need, or I would prefer blank or consequences. So when you raised your voice, I felt uncomfortable because my thought is, and I could be wrong, that you're angry with me. And I need or would prefer us to talk about this at another time. We could maybe make another appointment, or I don't think I can pay attention to what we need to talk about, would be an example. The other thing is clarification. We don't give advice. We share, and so we repeat it back. Well, I heard you say this. Is that right? And I saw with my eyeballs, I saw this, and I felt this. Would you like my experience or feedback? That's not necessary, but it is important to let the other person know you are hearing properly, and you never assume. Makes that an ass out of you and me, as they told me in nurses training. Now, problem solving, it's called brainstorming and negotiating, is also part of this gate. I can appreciate how you might feel, blah, blah, blah. So rather than doing what most people do, which is they go into debating or proving their case like they were lawyers, you go, I have a few ideas. And you come up with what I call peas or carrots. When you give a baby vegetables, you're the good parent. You know peas or carrots are what they're going to have, but they want bananas or cookies. You said, no, just peas or carrots, which would you prefer? And the child says carrots. The child thinks the child made the choice, but the truth is you were the good parent giving them the options. And if they don't like that, my example is, they can come up with broccoli or cauliflower if they don't like peas or carrots. That would be a simple analogy. So there's reasons we aren't assertive. We think we're being aggressive when we've been passive. And, it's on a scale. We act differently. We don't know the difference, and we haven't practiced. We are also afraid they won't like us. These are the reasons we aren't assertive. We're people-pleasing. And it's very important to know we don't cause other people's feelings. We have to be prepared that they may not like what our suggestions are. And we need to be responsible to us. Not to them, but to us. So those are some basic training. Now, one of the things about mapping the route to your destination, which we call emotional intelligence or growth, let's just say we come from a dysfunctional background. We've never seen a role modeled. We must learn, or resentment will fester. We owe it to all parties involved to be direct, and it can be learned as we learn to grow emotionally. So it is something that can be chosen, we can learn. Now, the core emotions are anger or fear. Anger, past 24 hours equals resentment. And if you think of anger in a grading system, like there's low level and there's high level. High level would be rage, low level would be irritation, but still on the anger spectrum. The same would be a fear spectrum. High level would be terror, low level would be a little uncomfortable or just a little worried. It's still on the fear spectrum. And if you compare it to colors, like red is the anger spectrum and fear is the green spectrum, you could say rage is bright red, a little irritated would be pastel pink. And if you're terrified, that would be bright green. And if you're a little uncomfortable, that would be pastel green. So those are examples of grades. So a lot of people hold what we call slush fund. And they just don't know how to get rid of these little irritations. And they add and add and add. They get more stress, but they ignore them. And then one day, boom, there's the explosion. The the thing that tipped off God only knows what. It was this huge explosion. It was just a little thing, but it was actually all this slush fund that's been building up. And some people, that is the only way they know how to clean out their irritations. That's not healthy. Now, obviously, you have to learn. Talk it over, got to pay attention, halt. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Do some journaling. You have to be capable of inventorying, talking it over, seeing your part in it, deciding on your own amends to yourself and your action and your boundaries. And always helpful to have people assist you because you can't always see yourself clearly. And of course, this leads to growth. Your self-esteem improves, and there's more situations you can handle without wanting to numb things through chemicals or food, or even rage is, an inappropriate way to deal with situations that are stressful. So, fear and love. Every emotion can be boiled down to the lowest common denominator. There's fear or love. Fear is losing something we have or not getting something we need. Fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. The other an acronym is F everything and run, or face everything and recover. That's borrowed from our 12-step friends. Inventory is so we can evaluate our wrongs, our fears, our resentments, and then we can take action to clean it out and make amends to us or to others. And if you think about just one day at a time, we keep our 24-hour life one day at a time. We keep our emotional house clean. So the White House story is, imagine you lived in a White House, you never saw any garbage collection, you lived in this beautiful cul-de-sac, but you knew you had garbage, and so what do? Well, you put it in the back rooms and hope nobody notices. And eventually it goes from the back rooms to the living room, and eventually you don't let people in your house because really you don't know what to do with it, and it just keeps stacking up. So I give my example. I'm the therapist. I knock on the door and I say, sorry, somebody lied to you. Nice people do have garbage, and I know you have it because I can smell it. But there are ways to clean your house out regularly. They're called garbage trucks. And so if you'll let me come in, we can start with the living room, and then we'll go into all these nooks and crannies in the back. Might be kind of stinky, but once it's cleaned out, then we learn to use and take our trash out. And the trash truck that comes once a week is what we use. And then if we have a party, we have more trash than usual, we take it out a little more often. The other example I give is the burglar alarm story. Imagine you grew up in a house where you were taught nice people don't have burglar alarms. And this burglar alarm was going off. You had no idea what it was there for. It was really embarrassing. So one of the things you do, you ignore it, or what most people do is they try to dismantle it. And the analogy to that is our feelings and our feelings of anger and fear. We try to find a way to numb it, dismantle it. But what are burglar alarms for? They're to keep people from coming in and invading and stealing things from our house. So it's sort of like I come in, I say, no, nice people do have burglar alarms, and this is how you use a burglar alarm. It shouldn't be going off all the time, and you should not ignore it, nor should you tell people to ignore it. Because it could mean two things. If a burglar alarm does go off, it could mean a kitty tripped off your burglar alarm, or it could be there really is a burglar in the house, in which case you get out of the house first. You don't try to tackle the burglar by yourself. So those are real quick analogies that I usually give to people, that their emotions are burglar alarms, and it's how they're taught when they grow up. So we must allow ourselves new perceptions Chuck Chamberlain, who is real famous in the AA movement, said, we essentially have a new pair of glasses. That's what we need to look at. And we're uncovering, we're discovering, and we discard what we don't need. So when you medicate your feelings, you numb the only connection you have with others to bond, and you've lost your only barometer for self-protection. When they say that the age you started to medicate or numb is the emotional age, you arrested your development. That especially goes true for anybody that's chemically dependent. But if they used food or shopping or gambling or focusing on other people, any of the addictions, basically they medicated and they stopped the emotional age that technically they would have developed had they not had this go-to mechanism. So it's very important to find a spiritual solution that you can do business with. And once that's handled, your mental and physical ailments will be healed as well. For example, they say alcohol is but a symptom. Isn't the alcohol for alcoholics that's the problem? It's a symptom of the underlying problem.